The Seamen's Christian Friends Society has been offering the hand of friendship to the seafaring community and to all those involved in maritime industries, trades and activities since 1846. Colin Jenkins and Kirsten Krause are working with the SCFS to bring the hope of Jesus Christ to those working upon ships that come into Irish ports. Colin and Kirsten, thanks for your time today.
Thank you, Arthur. It's great to be here.
Thanks, Arthur.
First of all, I'll start with you, Colin, if I can. Give us a brief background. Tell us more about the history of the SCFS, if you can. The main focus, the main vision of the organisation, Colin.
Yes, so SCFS, as you said, started in 1846 and it's going strong. We have maybe 30 chaplains around the world, international different ports. So it's international, non-denominational and evangelical seafarers mission. When people think about seafarers missions, they normally think of the other ones which are bigger, the Catholic Seafarers Mission and the Anglican Seafarers Mission. There's also, of course, Logos Ministries, Operation Mobilization, Logos Hope, and the Doulos Hope. There's Mercy ships, there's a YWAM ship, there's a Fisherman's Mission. So there's a lot of different ministries happening when it comes to the ships. But SCFS is a bit unique because we always seek to emphasize on the spiritual help for the crew members, both hand in hand, practical and spiritual help.
Tell me, Kirsten, if you would, tell me about your involvement. How long have you been working with SCFS? What does this mean to you? Why did you get involved in this?
Yeah, so I was actually chatting to Colin a few minutes ago, and I said there's a scripture in Romans that says I'm indebted. Paul is indebted to Greeks and barbarians to preach the gospel. And I just feel it's something that I have to do. I get a lot of energy out of it. For me, it's just fantastic to engage with people that are open, that are humble, almost desperate, for conversation, for engagement with outsiders. I mean, these guys, some of them sit on ships. We just spoke to a guy, 15 months on end. It's literally when they get off a ship, they kiss the ground. So it's an amazing open mission field, and I've been involved for probably about 3-4 months. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's like my weekly kick. I come in and I meet with Colin, and we go on these ships wherever we find an opportunity.
Colin, let me come back to you. Tell me, generally, the seafaring industry is not an easy industry to work in. Tell us about the typical makeup of the day-to-day life, the day-to-day week, and even month, even quarter for a typical worker on a ship.
Yeah, well, the amazing thing, I don't have a background in shipping. I studied forestry and worked in trees, landscape gardening, and worked for a builder. But 90% of world trade comes by sea. They're a forgotten people group upon whom we all depend. So 90% of the things we use every day, cars, clothes, food, coffee, electronics, just think about how they got into your home or into the country. That was just the grab, if you heard that noise in the background. We're in the port here at the moment beside the ship. But there's a lot of ships on the ocean. If you look at marinetraffic.com, you'll see how busy the oceans are. Even during the COVID pandemic, the ships kept moving. They were the frontliners, even when the airplanes stopped. And like Kirsten said, some of them were stuck on board. 18 months was some of the crew who I met who were stuck on board. But yeah, there's so many different kinds of ships and so many. It's hard to describe because. Some of them have a European flag, but the majority of them have what's called a flag of convenience. So the standards are a bit harder to regulate. And then, I've come across crew even recently. $6 per person per day is the food, the budget for the crew members for their food allowance. Even cruise liners, one person told me I get $1,000 a month, but he said some of the passengers spend $11,000 a day on board. That's the price of their ticket. So even a cruise ship, it looks like fantastic. It looks like heaven on earth. But some of them told me we're 6 people. We share one cabin, 6 people. Not all cruise companies are like this. There's a big variety of them as well. And they'd be there for 9 months, usually most of the crew members. And sadly, every day is Monday. no weekends, no bank holidays, and they're really working hard. Now, they're happy to be on board. They're making ends meet for their family at home, but there's a big difference. You can see this ministry, you can see like the world in a week, all the different nationalities.
And then tell me, I'll come back to you, Kirsten. Tell me what you've experienced in terms of people's I suppose, ultimately need for communication, need for fellowship, need for connection once they come into port, because living in such conditions, be it cramped conditions, 6 persons to a cabin, or even in their own cabin, nevertheless, being on board, being on a ship for so long, human nature is that we need human connection. Kirsten, speak to me about what you've experienced in terms of people's desire and need for human connection.
I think the biggest need that I've observed is the desperate need to be able to connect with family. What we do as part of the ministry is we give discounted SIM cards, with data, when we come here, and it's like gold. The guys come and they all want SIM cards desperately to connect with family, to chat with family. About 2 weeks ago, I was chatting to a guy from a Turkish ship, and they were going up north to places where there was no reception. And for them, it's a sort of they're completely isolated in those moments.
Were they going to Russia?
They were going to Russia.
Yeah, so some of the signals are blocked at the moment because of the war, which is why, because you think like there's a global coverage, but there's actually not.
So they are, they need to be connected. And I think, when we come in, it's just, part of the connection. It's like a door that opens, they're already open, and we just bring the gospel in. A few minutes ago, about an hour ago, we said, at one point we said, is there anyone with sickness or who needs healing or needs prayer? And literally some guys would pull their friends to the front and say, please pray for us. This guy's got a problem with his stomach. This guy's got a problem with their knee. It's like the need for interaction is like an open door for us to engage and share the gospel.
So in terms of communication, if there's people coming from all over the world, different languages and everything else, English is the international language of many industries. Do you ever find it difficult to communicate, not just by means of language, but by means of culture, by means of etiquette, by means of everything else? Speak to us about how you actually get across this.
Having been on more than 10,000 ships, friendship is the key, and a smiling face and a gift, and helping them practically, maybe being their taxi driver, taking them to the supermarket, bringing them to church, just listening to them, visiting them in hospital. There's so many things and ways that we can help them. But there is such an amazing difference between the cultures. So like Turkish, as Kirsten mentioned, mostly Muslims, Syrians and Indonesians, and where else? Well, there's over 113 nationalities that we meet regularly in the year. So when you think of some of those and how to just engage with them, even on the ship we've just come off, there's some Koreans. Now, my wife is a Korean, so I have a kind of a head start there. I can speak a little bit and I know something of the culture. So that's great when I can build that bridge. And seafarers are kind of a different tribe nearly. Like a lot of these ships have Russians and Ukrainians still working on the same ship. If they went home, they'd maybe have to fight each other. But on the ship, they're a family. They say, we're a family here. We work together, and they share everything. Another really interesting thing, thinking back to the cruise ships, is the Christian fellowships on board. Now, there are cargo ships as well, and regular Bible studies, and because if they're 9 months on the ship, when can they go to church? So many of them have church on board. And as Martin Otto, who's one of our colleagues in Hamburg port, he wrote so many books about the ministry. And he said the ministry is not only evangelism, but it's also discipleship and church planting on board.
So speak to us about the work you do to get on a ship. Ultimately, a port ship like the Port of Cork or the Port of Dublin, or basically any large shipping port, is a restricted area. Members of the public cannot just walk in. So speak to us about the work you do to ensure you have the right paperwork, and ensure you have the right, of course, connections. And of course, it's about building relationships with the captain as well. How does all this work from day zero to where you're at the moment, being able to visit so many ships?
Yeah, it's a privilege, and building relationships. Relationships are key. But with such a history going back to 1846, now I think in Cork there was a history of seafarers missions back to the 1860s or 70s, and I might be the fifth port missionary in a line of missionaries going back. So there's always been Christians have felt the need to reach out in love to these lonely people of the sea. But whenever I mentioned earlier, 90% of world trade is by sea. Just look at Ireland, for example. The main cities are ports: Cork, Belfast, Dublin, Waterford, Limerick, Drogheda, Dundalk, many, many ports. And, well, the access is, you have to, obviously with the port, you need to be a registered charity and have all the paperwork done. And, I think through relationship and through all the protocols and policies and procedures, health and safety, everything.
Okay, so tell us then, how can people get more involved in the work you're doing to help you to reach out and to build those friendships and indeed to share the good news of Jesus Christ with people? What can people do practically to help you?
Well, we really need prayer support. It's a frontline ministry, and the battle is spiritual. We're battling and reaching for the hearts and souls and minds of people from many different backgrounds and faiths and religions. We're not forcing them. We're there to offer the good news of Jesus Christ and share his love and his gospel with them. Prayerful and financial, practical. So there's a youth group tomorrow morning are going to help me wrap up Christmas presents. Usually this time of year is busy with many Christmas presents. We usually give about 1,000 Christmas presents every year. My colleagues in Rotterdam, 2,500 presents every year, because Rotterdam has maybe 100 ships a day, whereas Cork has between 5 to 10 ships a day. And then the woolly hats. So I let Kirsten say a little bit about that, because these hats, he was surprised. They love the hats. So Kirsten's wife is also, last month I got 1,000 hats from one woman. So there's knitters all over Ireland, but she knitted 1,000 hats in a year. But Kirsten's wife has added another dimension, which I'll just let him share about.
Yeah, so what she's doing with the hats is she's got the colors of the wordless book, the gospel colors, that she knits into the hat. So she sits every day. She does about maybe one every day, sometimes two a day, and she puts all the colors into the hat. And then as we hand out these hats, it's literally that in the moment where we hand this out, we can explain the gospel. And they put it on, and they've got the short version, the brief version of the gospel, literally in their hats. And I've even used it, coming back to your previous question, to help people. In some cases, there are people that can't understand English, but then you give a hat to a person who can understand English, and that person immediately, after you've given him the message, he takes that hat and he explains the message to the person who can't understand
in their own language.
In their own language, yeah. So it's a fantastic, a tool to share the gospel. But I can also say, I was actually surprised how much they value children's presents, like teddy bears and things like that, because they miss their family. And, some of them go home in a month's time or a week's time, and they need something to give the kids. And if there's teddy bears or children gifts, it's like they grab it and they run with it, because that's going to be the gift they're going to give to their children when they come home,
Okay, so it sounds like very interesting work. Tell us, where can people find more information about the work you're doing, Colin and Kirsten?
Yes, so there's a website and there's a Facebook page, scfs.org. And a seaman told me once, safety comes first, sir. So that's the same letters. He saw it on my helmet and said, safety comes first, sir. But SCFS stands for Seafarers Christian Friends Society, and it's scfs.org. And then the Facebook page, same name, but the easy way to find it is SCFS1. And but the same name. If you find it, Seafarers Christian Friends Society, it's either on, you search Google or the internet, it'll come up.
Okay, and just one last question. If people are listening as it's coming towards Christmas, if people have any gifts or any presents, be it woolly hats or be it Christmas children's toys or be it anything at all they want to donate to your organisation to pass on to the sailors, is that possible?
Yeah, definitely. Like Life FM for many years has done a promo for us as well, which is great. We we use freezer zip bags now and about 5 or 6 items. But even if you Google Siemens Mission Cork, it'll bring up my contacts like WhatsApp, and you can get in touch. And if you're ever in Cove when there's a cruise ship in, pop in and see us, because we have a centre for the crew members on the train station platform, which you can also find by looking at Google. It's there on Google Maps, but only open when the cruise ships are there. Another interesting ship in Cork, of course, is the Matthew, the drug ship, still here. I have a good relationship with those crew members. I was hoping to bring some to a carol service this coming Sunday, but they're not available. But hopefully some of these Filipinos from this ship we're beside will be joining us for the carol service on Sunday.
Okay, so it's like quite good work. Colin Jenkins and Kirsten Krause from the Siemens Christian Friends Society, the SCFS. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks you so much, Arthur.
Thanks, Arthur. Appreciate it.
Thanks.